Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Codman Square Neighborhood Council's monthly community meeting. My name is Cynthia Loesch-Johnson, and I'm president of the Codman Square Neighborhood Council. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to get right into the agenda because we have a full agenda this evening. I want to start off by just reminding everyone that our meetings are recorded and they are then shared on YouTube. So I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are many of our neighbors and families and friends that are unable to participate in the actual meeting. So we make sure to post it on YouTube so that they can enjoy it at their convenience. There's a lot of important information shared at our monthly meetings. So we want to make sure we get it out to the community. So I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the chat and you guys can share that with your friends and family. Tonight we have a full agenda. As you can see, we'll hear from B3 and C11. We'll learn about the farmers market, the Codman Square Park. We have mayoral candidates and District 4 candidate and a city councilor at large candidate. We'll hear from the executive secretary of the licensing board. We'll learn a little bit about the Building Energy Reporting and Disclosure Ordinance. We'll hear from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, State Representative Russell Holmes, and any other elected officials that have representation at the meeting. So we have a lot to cover tonight. And before I begin, I just want to remind you all that we are an all volunteer organization and we're able to do all of the great work that we do because of these wonderful board members here. So you'll see our 2021 board members and our affiliate members, and these people really come together every month to help make all the magic happen. You guys can all see my screen, right? All of the slides I've been showing?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll kick off the meeting by talking about the Codman Square Park. If you are not familiar, this park is located at the corner of Washington and Talbot. Show of hands, who's been to this park, maybe for the farmers market or for different community events. It's our most centrally located space in Codman Square. And here is a rendering of one of the possibilities of what the future of the park could be. We started visioning for this space years ago, and then eventually started to secure funding to bring some of our ideas to life. And to date, we've secured $640,000 in city capital dollars, $150,000 in CPA funds, and we put in a proposal for Brown funding for $150,000. So we're really trying to secure a little over $1 million to bring this vision that we have to really activate this space beyond how it's being used presently. And it's been a phenomenal process. We have our young people involved, our residents of all ages involved, merchants, religious organizations, nonprofits, our stakeholders. Everyone's kind of been putting the work in to figure out how do we transform this space so that it can truly be something amazing. And so I spoke with Kathy Baker Eclipse from Parks recently, and she shared that we hope to initiate community meetings with the city starting in August, because there are a lot of moving parts and different funding sources coming in. And so once we get all those things in place, we can start meeting again to figure out the future of this park. So if you are interested, please reach out to the council. This is a really exciting opportunity to transform this space at the corner of Washington and Talbot Ave. And it's been a really, really fun process seeing it go from just visioning with a couple of us in a room to, you know, securing a landscape architect and an artist to kind of bring our ideas to life. And now, you know, have this rendering to showcase some of the ideas that we'd like to see. Does anyone have any questions? I see some hands raised, but I'm not sure if it's from the initial question that I asked about using the park. Does anyone have any questions about the Codman Square Park, the process, funds that we've secured, anything like that? No? Great. I will put a link in the chat so that you can learn a little bit more about the history and see some of the different renderings. I mean, there are really cool features. This is a performance stage. This is an iconic feature, I Am Codman Square, that showcases all the different ethnicities that you can find in Codman Square and goes, you know, looks at the historic context of the neighborhood, you know, from the Native Americans straight through to the wonderful families that we have now. As you can see, there's no barricade between the church parcel and the park parcel. So there's more of an open and shared space, increased green space. It's very educational, active, intergenerational use is encouraged. It's a really cool design that we've come up with. So I will share a link so you can learn more. And if there are no questions, I will now move on to the Codman Square Farmers Market and hand it off to Keshler Sanon. He's the coordinator of the Bold Teens.
Hi, hello. My name is Keshler Sanon. I am the Bold Teens coordinator, and I just wanted to share with everyone that the market will be starting July 10th. It'll be from 11 to 2 at the Codman Square Park. And due to the lifting of the COVID-19 restrictions, we'll be able to, safely have social Saturdays again. So I'm excited about that. Any questions?
Keshler, could you tell us a little bit about Social Saturdays, some of the activities we've had in the past?
Yeah, so last year, things were pretty restricted, so we weren't able to do much. It was pretty much just grab and go with your food. But Social Saturdays used to be more of a fun social gathering for the community where there'd be music and food and different vendors. And it's more of a sit down and relax thing than it was last year. So there's music, there might be certain like themes or events for the week. Yeah.
I see Leonard Lee had his hand raised. Did you have a question?
Candice just asked it. It was just wondering how can you sign up for a table?
I believe you can talk to I believe is Shamar running it this year?
We have to finalize the details. Shamara is on, but we can put the Codman Square Farmers Market email in the chat so that anyone that wants to sign up for a table can do so. And just to piggyback off of what Keshler shared, we allow different organizations and different efforts taking place in the community to kind of take over a Saturday. So you can really promote your organization or whatever initiative you have going on in the space of the farmers market, and it's like a collaboration. Examples would be, for Health Center Week, the Codman Square Health Center is a sponsor that week and really showcases all the initiatives they're working on. Thumbprint Cares takes on a week closer to August, and they give away like 400 backpacks to young people in the community. There are just different examples of how you can sponsor the farmers market on different weeks and share the great work that you're doing in the neighborhood. So we'll put that in the chat. Any other questions for Keshler? You can see in the photos here, Keshler's here with the team. The Bold Teens take a huge leadership role at the Codman Square Farmers Market. One of our vendors are here. She's been with us for many years. It's a wonderful time, and I think a lot of us are excited to get back into that social space and make sure we do it safely. Thanks, Keshler. Moving along in the agenda, we will now hear from B3. Is B3 on? Just check.
B3 is here. It's not Cynthia, so you all may be surprised. Cynthia actually got transferred and is no longer in B3, but she does help out and come by because her office is still technically located on the B3's district. So for the last 30 days, you all had 4 other offenses. And those are minor things, maybe missing property or lost property. 1 aggravated assault, 1 weapons offense, 1 domestic violence offense, 1 intimidation, 1 motor vehicle theft, 2 car accidents that were worthy of a police report. There may have been many others that we just didn't write reports for. 2 simple assaults and 1 act of vandalism. The weapons offense and the the weapons offense and the, whatever they were together. And it stemmed from Oakwood Street, and the gentleman had a gun. He fired 3 rounds off. The neighbors were excellent. They called 911. Officers were able to find him, and he was arrested. The weapon was found. A few shell casings were found, and a live round was found also. About 4:16 today, a second offense was committed where a gentleman fired rounds on Edson Street, and he was also arrested. No one was struck in either incident. And that's pretty much it for B3, unless you all have questions.
I have a quick question. Do you share guns fired in the district through ShotSpotter?
We do in general. You didn't have any in your particular area outside the two that I said today. But yes, and I think if you're on the meeting tomorrow, I'll share that with you tomorrow for the meeting. I think you'll be on with Mass Housing tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other
Eric? Eric,
Yes,
how are you today, sir?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
Outstanding. Can you give us a little bit more about Cynthia? Is she in B2, E18? What happened?
Cynthia transferred to peer support. When the politicians stress us out, we get upset and sad, and sometimes we need to go talk to our peers to calm us back down, or if it goes a little further, maybe a psychiatrist or something.
Okay, so no problem. Thanks for the information, though. Don't mean to stress you guys
She's still
out.
reachable. She's still reachable, and she still loves you all. At some point, she will tune into one of these meetings to say bye.
So who's in the CSO office now? We have a new sergeant.
Correct. That's Sergeant Merced.
Yep.
Cynthia's partner, Sean Harris, is injured at
Sean's
the
still
moment.
there. Okay. Oh,
My
okay.
partner is deployed at the moment. So when you say who's in the CSO office, me.
I got you. Well, great. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Pleasure's all mine.
Peer support. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Are there any other questions? Comments? We really appreciate you joining us tonight. We hope to see you every month. We are going to miss Officer Brewington. She was definitely a part of our family, but we appreciate you giving us the update on her current situation.
Yes, pleasure's all mine. I don't know about every month because I believe Sean should be back very soon and he'll be taking over the evening things.
Okay, good to know.
All right. Nice to meet you all. Have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you. You do the same.
Bye.
And C11 has been going through some transition, and I don't think anyone is on.
C11's here.
Oh, you are? Excellent. Welcome.
Hi.
How are
Mike
you?
Keaney, Officer Keaney.
Hi, Officer Keaney.
How you doing? How are you?
Doing well. So glad that you're with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. Sorry about last month. It was a family emergency about 20 minutes before the meeting started, so you got to take care of family. But I'm here this week, and I don't have a hell of a lot to tell you about, which is a great thing, actually. Just a couple of things in and around the neighborhood. All of this is in May, by the way. May 12th at 9 in the morning, the C11 Drug Control Unit did a search warrant at 387 Talbot Ave. Detectives found a large bag of pot and a large bag of crack cocaine, 20.2 ounces, 20.2 grams of crack. 44-year-old man who resided there was charged with distribution of a Class D pot substance and trafficking in Class B, which was the crack. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
May 16th, we had a house break on Lithgow Street, 33 Lithgow. It could have happened anytime between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. The next morning on the first floor. The woman was unsure who lived there. She locked up. And as a result, whoever walked in ended up with 100 cell phones, 50 SIM cards, and 10 GPS tracking systems. This gentleman works out of the apartment there. He's kind of a freelancer, selling the cell phones, so forth and so on. We've had one similar break, though they didn't get into the house, and that was on Roslyn Street a week earlier, and that was also like from midnight to 4 a.m., where they tried to get into a first floor residence. Unusual to break into a home when it's occupied, especially late at night like that. We haven't had anything since, which is a good thing. During the month, there were 2 ShotSpotter activations on Washington Street. Both times they were found out to be anything but shots fired. One was the backfire of a dump truck at a construction site, and the other was a couple of bottle rockets that were set off. The only other thing we have going is in a week we're going to have the academy is graduating between 90 and 100 recruits, and C11 we hope to get 10 to 15 of those individuals to help us out during the summer months, which is good news. We need them very much. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you, Officer Keaney. Any questions for the C11 side?
I have one. Any update on the Park Street shooting, the homicide that happened on Park Street?
The shooting in District 3 down at Spencer and Park. I know there was an arrest on it, and the only thing I heard was that it was a neighborhood beef, that both gentlemen knew one another. How, I don't know. What the beef was over, I don't know. All I know, unfortunately, is that one man is deceased and another is under arrest for his murder. And these aren't kids. These are gentlemen, I believe, in their late 30s, mid to late 30s.
Other questions or comments? Officer Keaney, I don't think the new sergeant has attended our monthly meeting. It'd be nice if you could invite him to present in the coming months.
I will let him know that. Unfortunately, he's dealing with one of his parents in hospice. So, he's here in the daytime, and then at night he goes and spends time to help take care of his mom.
Understood.
But I will let him know.
Thanks for letting us know. And also, I hope everything is okay with the family emergency that you had.
Yeah, my mom-in-law is doing a hell of a lot better. She lives with us, so, that's why I kind of hit home a little bit more. I had to take care of business. But thank you very much for your understanding. And I hope you meet next month, and hopefully I'll be there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Officer Keaney.
Good night, one and all.
Have a good night. Moving along in the agenda, we have a special guest. Tonight, we're going to hear from Lesley Delaney Hawkins. She's the Executive Secretary of the Boston Licensing Board, and she's going to share with us a little bit about the Boston Cannabis Board process. As you know, in Codman Square, we had two proposals proposed on Washington Street for cannabis dispensaries, and we were under the impression that because of the city's buffer zone, because the two were so close together, we wouldn't have to worry about both applicants being approved, but both applicants were approved at the city level. And so Lesley's going to help shed some light on what the process is, how something like that could happen, and just hopefully answer any questions that we may have. It's rare that you get the executive secretary of the licensing board at a community meeting. So we're so grateful to have you. And we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
Absolutely, Cynthia. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Representative Holmes for his outreach, and Councilor Campbell for their outreach. I will say Jasmine Wynn, who is our project manager, who I think is hiding under another name, who actually lives in the neighborhood, is on as well. And then Chayla White, who's the attorney who handles the equity certification in the Office of Economic Development, is also on. So I am the executive secretary for both the Liquor Licensing Board and then the Cannabis Board. So I'm the attorney for both boards. So I'll just give a brief overview of the Cannabis Board's process and then a little bit of background on the two Codman Square applicants. And then I'm here to answer any questions as they pertain to whether you've got cannabis or liquor or food service questions for me. So I think as everyone knows, the Cannabis Board was created and charged with ensuring equity both in the distribution of to whom these licenses go to, but also where they go in the city, right? Because that was one of the big concerns in other municipalities, that they created what was called the Green Mile, where one neighborhood was stuck with all of the cannabis establishments. And I think the then city council president, now mayor, and then mayor, we're all very concerned about that. So Boston at a minimum has to cite under the law that legalized cannabis 52 dispensaries in the city of Boston. And that excludes medical, that excludes any other use like manufacturing, cultivation, delivery, or testing. So that's 52. We have the half-mile buffer zone, which is in the zoning code. So that requires a zoning variance to waive. And then we have the school buffer zone, which is the 500 feet from an existing K through 12. And again, I can also provide, we have presentations on this. So no one should feel like they need to take notes. We can always provide this information. But the school buffer zone is 500 feet from an existing K through 12 public or private school offering education. That cannot be waived under Massachusetts law. So when the board was drafting our rules and regulations, we knew that there was physically no legal way to cite the 52 minimum with a half-mile buffer zone. So what the board did was establish a heightened level of scrutiny for someone within a half-mile of an existing cannabis establishment. So what that means is that if the board votes to grant a license, which is what allows them to go on to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the board is saying, we think this is appropriate even given its proximity to an existing cannabis establishment. And then the Zoning Board of Appeals evaluates whether they think a variance, which I think everyone here, everyone's very active, so you know that the variance is kind of the higher legal standard with the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything that you probably don't know even better than I do. So in the case of Codman Square, we had 2 equity applicants that were very close in time to each other. And the way the Cannabis Board schedules hearings is based on application dates, right? So we're trying to be as transparent as possible in scheduling those. So we had 2 certified equity applicants pursuant to the Boston Equity Program. And it's important to note that that program is different than the 2 state programs. The state has 2 programs that fast track you for your review at the state level. That's economic empowerment and social equity. Boston, under the ordinance, has its own program where it looks even more in depth at who your investors are and whether they qualify under, and again, Attorney White is with us if there are any questions about equity, under the Boston criteria, right? So it goes another step. Just because you're state equity doesn't mean you're Boston equity. So in this instance, the board granted the first, and then when the second applicant in Codman Square came, there was a good presentation. The board felt that it was appropriate given the other locations or lack of locations in the neighborhood, and the board granted the second. That then went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, where both were granted variances. I do want to be clear, Codman Square is absolutely not the only neighborhood where this is happening. We've now seen, I believe there are now 4 in the Back Bay. There are multiples in Fenway. There are 2 in downtown Boston, again, within buffer zones of each other. We are going to see more than 1 in every single neighborhood in the city of Boston. And I just want to be very clear that the board is committed to making sure that when we look at the buffer zone, we don't just look and say there's a buffer zone, right? And again, I'm a non-voting member. I do not vote on these applications. I'm the attorney. But we say, okay, well, it's not just that there's 1 in Codman Square, there's now 2. So if we're seeing another proposal, how is that different? What need is it meeting in that community that 2 recreational aren't fulfilling, right? Is it a testing laboratory? Is it a delivery? Is it cultivation, right? So again, there is going to be density of these establishments. And I do think, and again, Representative Holmes has been phenomenal and very patient to work with, because we do realize this is an emerging industry and everyone's learning as we go along. And I think there was some confusion about what the buffer zone meant and that it could prevent multiples in any neighborhood. And unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, legally, we have to cite 52 of these, right? And again, that's the board's charge. And in this instance, some of the things that the board felt about both of these 2 applicants was that not that just that they were equity applicants, but that there was diversity and inclusion in every level of what was being proposed, right? From not just the ownership, but to the staffing, to working with contractors. And the board obviously voted to grant both of these. They are now both going through the process at the CCC, that's the state entity. And that is the entity where they're really going to drill down on where are your security cameras? What is your plan for delivery of product or pickup of money? What is your plan for lighting and ensuring that you're properly staffed? Should either or both of these be approved at the state level, before they're permitted to open, they come back to the board with a final safety, security, and operations plan that we share with the district captain and solicit input to ensure that what they're proposing is going to be properly staffed. And then moving forward, just like with liquor licenses, it's regulated by this board. So that was, I think, another important point of creating a board at the local level, because obviously the state has oversight over this, but it was important because the state has just that, the whole state. It was important that there be a disciplinary and regulatory authority at the local level to say, okay, you've got lines queuing outside of your space, or you have double parking, or there are allegations of selling to underage, which I'll be honest with you, this isn't liquor licensing, that gets your license taken away from you, right? Something like that. This is a highly regulated industry, and we're taking it very seriously. So I'm not sure if that kind of answers the process and how the two are evaluated in Codman Square, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is an emerging industry and no one was going to get anything perfect on the first try. So we're always looking for feedback. We're always looking to hear about ways that people think we could do a better job, that we can communicate better with the community. And again, we're here both as a resource and to understand how we can do our jobs better.
I saw that Rep. Holmes' hand was raised, so we can start with him and then continue on with questions.
So Cynthia, I know Lesley has said a lot of kind words about me, but I'm going to say equally kind words about her. I told you last month when you asked me that I knew I could get Lesley here without even talking to you, because she has been that dedicated of a worker and been as transparent as you've seen tonight. And I knew it would happen if we absolutely needed her. So let me just say, one of the things that we've done politically was we said we should set this board up very much like what we've done with the cannabis board, at the state level, cannabis board, obviously with the casino board, and what we've done now with Post. And that is, we politicians should not have our hands in the mix. And so I can tell you this cannabis board made me feel like my hands were not in the mix. And I guess that's what it should be like, because rest assured, Cynthia, you would call me, I would call Marty, I would then call Andrea, we'll do a three-way, and then we will all be mad because of the fact we're gonna get two of them. And then I'll call Lesley, and Lesley would say, well, Rep, you can't do that legally. And I say, Lesley, you're gonna get a phone call from Marty because Marty's gonna call you because I'm gonna call him angry. So I guess all I'm gonna say is we built something that politically, we, as a politician, I wanna still be able to go put my hands on, but this moved through this process, even with Marty not being very pleased, me not being very pleased, and Andrea being very pleased. And I just wanted to just say that because of the fact that Cynthia, you and the whole group have been charged about this for a very long time. I just wanted to just say all three, Marty, me, Andrea, Julia, all were very active in trying to harass Lesley to say this better not happen, because we believed, like you did, but Cynthia, I remember when you and I sat in a black box over in Codman Square a year and a half ago, we thought we were going to get one because of the buffering. So thank you, Lesley. Sorry for the long spill after you, but I just wanted to make sure before folks ask questions, that's kind of how this played out. Thanks. And I'll be here to answer any questions, obviously, through the whole meeting as well.
I can't say thank you enough. And the representative absolutely told me that I was going to be getting a call from my boss. And I appreciate that. And I do appreciate also the fact that this process has changed and there's been so many different iterations of it that I don't want to take away from the frustration or the thought that a neighborhood was only going to get one. I completely understand that. And we're here as resources. We're here to answer questions. But one of the things I want to emphasize is that we're not letting these open and leaving them there, right? And walking away. That these are going to be very strictly regulated establishments, and you're going to have an open line of communication with the city. And just like with liquor, we have the licensed premise unit of the Boston Police Department, the local district. We will all be committed to enforcing all of these rules and regulations, which are much more stringent than they are with a retail package store.
Thank
So
you.
Lesley, what the community wants is they want to know, can these two shops, basically, since they both get approved, in your process, before they come back to the community, right, and start to open, what I've heard loud and clear is they basically would like both of those people in one room to kind of say, hey, here's how we're going to operate. This is what we're doing, so that there's no conflict of, hey, these are going to be open at this time, this is going to be open at this time. They really would like, now that both are going to be approved, what is the wave of things that's going to happen from both of these shops? Because we're thinking we're going to get just one. How does it move now with two? What are the community benefits? How will they operate together? How will they play nice together? Kind of, hey, we have two of you guys, you both coming in here, make sure that you're doing all the things that you both are supposed to deliver for the community. So in your process, is there a way to make sure that they come back to the community before they open to have a robust conversation like the one they had before they got the licenses?
And before you answer, Lesley, I do see the other hands raised, so we'll get to that as soon as we hear from
Oh,
Lesley.
sorry.
So before, I want to make it clear, it's going to be a very lengthy process at the state. Even with the equity status, it's a very in-depth, lengthy process. Before either can open, they have to come back to the BCB with their final security and operations plan in order to actually be issued that physical license. And I would think that if the body that's holding that license says, we would really like you to work with your elected representatives and the community and sit down for community conversation as you get closer to opening, I would think that would be in their best interest to do so. And I'm more than happy to make that connection between the two applicants and Representative yourself and the councilor, and suggest that should take place sooner rather than later.
That's helpful to know. Leonard Lee, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, is this a done deal? I mean, what I'm hearing is we're stuck with two dispensaries in Common Square. Is that what I'm hearing? We have no recourse at this point?
Two dispensaries have been approved by the Boston Cannabis Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. They're now both at the state level. What the state looks at is slightly different than what the municipality looks at. They look at the background checks of the applicants and whether they think they can actually successfully operate these businesses within the regulatory structure that of having such a product on site. And again, that's your security, your operations, your quality, all that. But they are both at the state level at this time.
So I guess my question is, do the community have any recourse at the state level if we want to try to stop having these two dispensaries in Common Square?
You can absolutely, and I can provide that contact information, reach out to the CCC and provide feedback. They defer to the municipalities, and the municipality has granted them each of these an HCA, and they've received the zoning, but I can absolutely provide the contact for the CCC. And again, they're a public body, just like the Boston Cannabis Board.
But just one more question, Lesley, and thank you for coming. I know a lot about you, so it's really nice to have you here answering these questions. But my real concern is, because of my background, I was part of the transition team of medical marijuana going to recreational with DPH. I was a marijuana guy, whatever. So my real concern is at the state level, if we have any recourse that we can mount to let the state know that we don't want two cannabis shops in a high densely. We got challenges with crime. We got challenges with just the density of it and traffic, and it's just a nightmare. I'm just trying to figure out, do we have a recourse? Can we now plead to the Cannabis Board to say, hey, listen, we don't want this? Is that available, or is that somewhere in statute, or is that up to the commissioners?
That would be up to the CCC, and I'll be honest, I'm walking a little fine line here because I am the attorney for the.
No, I understand.
I can absolutely provide you that contact information. My understanding of the state's review process, concerns about safety and security are absolutely within their purview, right? To ensuring that it's a safe operation, but the city is legally the siting authority. So they don't typically get into, we disagree with the municipality that this is an appropriate site, even with the proximity of another. But that being said, that doesn't mean you can't make your pitch, right? That doesn't mean you can't reach out, and I'm happy to provide the contact there for that.
That would be great. Thank you, Lesley. Appreciate you.
No, of course.
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, okay, great. Who determines that there is 52 of these locations in Massachusetts? I mean, how is it determined that there's 52? Like, who works the numbers here? And wouldn't it be great communication if the community knows, first of all, that we're being forced to take care of these marijuana shops before people bid on these? Because then it gets to be really upsetting when somebody who's in the business finds out that the community doesn't want them. And it's not that. They just need to understand, and communication needs to be with the community first. Codman Square doesn't even have a shoe repair shop, okay? We don't even have enough cleaners in Codman Square, and here we are working with a marijuana shop. Do you understand what I mean? We have needs in Codman Square, and I don't think that having a marijuana shop would be the first thing on our minds right now.
So I can absolutely speak to where the 52 comes from. That is applicable in every municipality. So the state law that in 2016 legalized recreational marijuana, it legalized it based on the number for each municipality was 20% of your retail package store quota. And in Boston, based on our retail package store quota, that came to 52. The only way that could be limited would be a vote of a vote of the municipality. Boston voted fairly overwhelmingly, and actually every neighborhood except for one, which is West Roxbury, and that doesn't mean they don't get cannabis establishments. They will, just like everyone else.
Wow.
Legalized. So Boston, one of the things we look at when Jasmine and I are briefing the commissioners on applications is we look at what the percentage was in each neighborhood that legalized it. You know, I think one of the challenges in Boston, 52 is a high number. It is, but that is what legally we are tasked with. And both Jasmine and Shayla know we have conversations with other municipalities where they say, you know, we have to cite 5 of these, and we laugh, right? Because 5 is obviously nothing. But Boston, the quota for retail package stores that were legally under Massachusetts state law is how they got to that number. And that was part of the law that legalized recreational marijuana. So that's not.
So what about communities like Milton and Needham and Brookline and areas out there in the suburbs? Do they have to be forced with these establishments?
It is the same. It is 20% of the quota for their retail package stores, unless there was a citywide referendum that either decreased or banned it.
When you're saying package stores, are you talking about liquor stores in the neighborhood?
Yes. So also known as Section 15, off-premise consumption. So liquor stores. That is what the legislation that legalized this. That is specifically what it required.
Okay, so therefore, places like Milton and Brookline and Dedham and those other places that I mentioned, they're not going to have establishments like that because you don't see liquor stores in their area either.
So what I do want to point out, and I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds here, it's the quota. So the quota is our maximum number we can ever issue. Just like we have a quota on restaurant licenses, right, on liquor licenses, we have a quota on package store licenses. Boston has never hit or come anywhere near that quota, but it's the quota. It's not how many you have open and operational. And that quota goes back to 20 or 30 years ago, based on population of all these municipalities. So you're right in that no other municipality is going to have a number that looks like what Boston has for cannabis dispensaries. And they also don't have the same quota for liquor stores. Oh, Cynthia, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. We do have to move on to the next question, but I think the point that Steve's really trying to make is that we are really concerned with the things that are in our community, that we have a saturation of, liquor licenses, of tobacco permits, of fast food establishments. We have a lot of the same. And so there is a huge concern here with 2 cannabis dispensaries coming into the community that will turn into more than 2. We shouldn't even have had 2 in our mind, if you think about the history that Rep. Holmes shared. And so we're just really concerned about the clustering that already takes place in our community with regards to liquor, alcohol, tobacco, and fast food. And we understand the health implications. We know that this is impacting our health in the sense that we have really high diabetes type 2, obesity, heart issues, substance abuse, you name it. 02124 Codman Square, we are struggling with it. Major health inequities because of what we see and what we have access to in our community. We don't have a lot of healthy food options. We don't have, grocery stores that bring us fresh organic produce. We have to create these entities ourselves with our farmers markets, and we're really struggling to provide our families with the resources that we need to survive. And we just want to make sure we can establish a partnership with the city where the city can understand that we can't take any more. We don't want any more tobacco permits. We don't want any more liquor licenses. We're so grateful. Please relay our message to the licensing board. We're so grateful for them preventing the Popeyes from opening in Codman Square in between a McDonald's and a KFC. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And to Steve's point, you don't see that in other neighborhoods in Boston, but then in other cities and towns throughout the state. So this is our concern. We're trying to prevent the clustering of cannabis because we already have a clustering of liquor, tobacco, and fast food.
And I will say, I think the board hears that loud and clear. This is a 5-person board with representatives from licensing, public health, public safety, community organizing, and labor. And I think one of the things we have seen is that the board doesn't have much patience for NIMBYism, not meaning, all right, we've got 2, let's talk about if any more were in the vicinity, whether that's appropriate. But instead, let's look at, Back Bay, right? They didn't want any, right? But this board said, no. Just, we're looking at the density. We're looking at what you have. We're looking at what the need is and the foot traffic and where it's coming from. And we're evaluating all of that. So, obviously I don't advise the board on how to vote, but I can tell you that this board is, and I'd say the same for my licensing board, it's very sensitive to, again, equity, not just in who these are going to, but in the distribution. So I will absolutely pass that on, but I think that's being heard loud and clear.
Thank you, Lesley. Marilyn?
Yes, thank you, Lesley, for coming out tonight and explaining this whole process. So my question is, how many already are licenses or whatever it is issued to the city of Boston as of now? Do you know what that number is?
I do. I think we're just above 30 in terms of recreational. And I know Jasmine will kill me for asking her to unmute herself if she's still on. And I know she was going back and forth between community meetings, but she's the keeper of the records.
Okay.
So just above 30. We have another hearing next week where we're hearing, I believe, 5 new applications. We have 4 open and operational in Boston right now. And one of the things I've emphasized is that not every one of these that has gone through the city's process is going to open. There are going to be people who can't raise the funding or who simply don't have an appropriate business plan. I think the board's done a really good job of vetting that, but it is a very expensive proposition. Again, when I talk about the security systems you're legally required to have by the state, the vaults, the randomized picking up and delivery of product, of money. So that's something that we're keeping a very close eye on in both of people withdrawing their applications because they weren't successful, and ensuring that we're looking at where those are, are coming and going. We have seen now, as of today, we've seen 2 very early equity applicants who are operating off of letters, neither in your community, but both of operating off of letters of intent from their landlord as opposed to a lease. And they got to the end of the process, and the landlord said, now I want this amount of money, and they've both had to withdraw their applications.
So, okay, so what, 2 questions. So if we don't get the 52 and then say that someone is qualified, they meet all of the quota, they want to come somewhere in very close proximity, can that or will that happen to so that your quota is met? And then the second question is, I saw the other night on the news that there's a dispensary that opened up somewhere. Well, they're not really open, they just do delivery, right? So is that like is that considered in that 52 number, that if they don't have a brick and mortar location, that they can still open as a dispensary, but just do the delivery piece of it? And it would kind of operate out of, say, the Codman Square neighborhood?
So in terms of meeting the 52, I don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you that the board's always going to be looking, among other things, to the density in the neighborhood and what specific neighborhood it is. But I can speak to delivery. Those are 2 new license types that have just come on. For the first 3 years, they are dedicated to social equity and economic empowerment applicants at the state. The first type is the courier, and that is the Uber Eats of cannabis delivery. That is someone, if you are Pure Oasis on Blue Hill Avenue or your Berkshire Roots in East Boston, there are companies that can go and pick up and deliver straight to consumers. So there's nothing forward facing from their location. So the board just approved a courier delivery in Port Norfolk in Dorchester. There's never going to be any cannabis there. There's never going to be any patrons coming there. It's simply where they dispatch their vehicles from. Then there's the warehousing model, which means you go and you buy from a wholesaler or a cultivation site. You can then bring it back to your warehouse, repackage, and then deliver to consumers. Again, no patrons are ever coming to your establishment, but that is where you store it. Neither of those license types count towards the 52, but they are still regulated by the board.
Thank you.
But again, I know this is a lot of information and we live it and breathe it every day. So I'm always happy. Anyone can reach out to me.
There are 2 more questions, Lesley, and I know I'm trying to be mindful of your time and our agenda.
I just don't want anyone to feel like this is the only bite at the apple with this stuff. That's what we're here for, is to answer these questions.
We appreciate it. Joanne?
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Lesley. It's a pleasure meeting you. You've been a wealth of information. I appreciate you coming. I used to run Supply Diversity Somber for years, and I used to work with the Department of Transportation, sniffing out fraudulent businesses on the Big Dig and hearing those cases. And one of the applicants for Codman Square raises a red flag. So I was hoping that the staff person who was involved with determining the equity applicant, if they were on the line, could they speak to that a little bit? Because this one particular, is it okay if I just say who it is?
I would say
533 Washington Street in Codman Square, that cannabis applicant. Based on the presentation before our civic association, it was very, very clear that the equity applicant is only a person of color who has invested no money, nothing at all, just strictly name. And the owner owns the building. The owner is supplying 100% of the funds. The owner will receive rent from the business. I mean, all of the things that legally that individual is entitled to. But you and I know this person could never qualify as an MBE with the city of Boston, trying to do business with the city of Boston, and nor could they with the state as a DBE or an MBE or a WBE. So I guess I'm really concerned that we've sort of done ourselves a disservice by relaxing a little bit on the regulations, that someone could just go out, find a Black person and say, can you be my equity applicant? And that person says yes, and they get paid. I have seen too many times where later on down the road, that individual is not protected. They're usually kicked out, they're bought out, or something happens where they no longer now own the majority of the business. So I guess I want to understand a little bit more about what the city is doing around the scrutiny of these equity applicants, and what kind of questions are asked around the protection of these equity applicants when they are not putting up any of the money, but they're strictly just the equity applicant. And my last question is, do you go out and conduct site visits? So when you look at the establishment where they're trying to open up, do you actually go out and look at the building, the structure? This one is in a 3-family nestled in with other 3 families. And it's in a very congested neighborhood. And, you know, quite honestly, I don't have a problem with one, and probably not even 2, but I think the second one where it's located is a bit touching. People who have children who sleep at night, businesses coming all during the night, car doors possibly slamming. You can't stop that. You can control traffic, but you can't stop, you know, car door slamming. I live next to the courthouse, so I know exactly what that noise sounds like. And, you know, when you're trying to put kids to bed, you know, those kinds of things, you know, it can become a nuisance. So I guess I just want to know, do you go out, do you look at the location of the proposed cannabis operations, look at traffic patterns, look at foot traffic in order to decide whether or not if that is a suitable location for the building?
So both good questions. So let me just start with the first. I'm going to give Attorney White a minute. I think we can have, so I'll let her speak to her process, which she actually testifies before the board and goes very deep into the equity certification. I think maybe we can offline, I'm going to put my email in the chat. We can have offline that specific applicant's information, and we can have a conversation about that. I will say that there are, even before we get into Attorney White's process, which is very specific, the ordinance, I just want to make a couple of points. We don't have any flexibility under the ordinance. We apply it. You know, one of the things we've done is we've briefed the mayor, and we've briefed other people on things that we think based on, again, nothing, we're building the bike while we're riding it. Nothing is perfect, right? When you roll it out. We've seen some issues with the way areas of disproportionate impact are defined. We've seen some, you know, so some other issues that we think were unintended. So we're always proactively kind of looking at how to improve this. If you are a certified equity applicant, if you're any applicant and you receive a license, you cannot transfer that license without a public hearing before the board, or any part of that license or beneficial interest in it without a public hearing before the board. And if you are equity, you can never lose your equity status. You can never lose that, you know, you have to be 51% or greater. We also have an annual renewal process where, among other things, everyone has to legally attest to who their ownership is, how they're meeting the goals or not meeting them that they've established in terms of hiring and diversity and inclusion and other things. And one of the reasons we do that is so that if you are caught lying, right, if you paid someone off to say I'm your equity applicant, then your license gets taken away. So we're always trying to improve that process, and obviously a lot of anyone approved through the equity process, no one's open yet. So that's something that, you know, we'll be improving on in the next couple of years. In terms of, before I turn it over to Attorney White, and again, we won't speak to this specific applicant, but I think it's helpful. We can do that offline to learn about her process. In terms of site visits, I can tell you that while there is no mandate for a site visit, I think every single one of these 5 commissioners goes out, looks, brings their own both institutional knowledge and personal knowledge of the neighborhoods to this. And all of these licensees will be subject to the fact that things are going to change, right? If we're having problems with traffic or queuing outside, we're going to address that. So again, I just want to emphasize, we're not dropping these in the neighborhood and walking away and saying, they're there now. You know, we're going to be closely monitoring that. And we're going to be looking to groups like this group, to Codman Square, to give us feedback. And we'll be working very closely with these licensees. And one of the things that we point out all the time is that this is an emerging industry, and even just the 4 who have opened now, we conduct random inspections. I was on random inspections with the Boston Police Department 2 weeks ago. And, you know, we said, you know, we noted some issues, right? And said, you're going to correct them, or you're going to come in for a violation hearing. So I just want to emphasize that, again, we're not looking to just drop these in the neighborhoods, say we've hit 52 and we're done with it, right? That's not how we want this industry to work. And I don't know if Chayla is on, and I know she wasn't expecting for me to throw her under the bus, but if she could just explain her process.
It's fine. I'm more than happy to. Thank you for having me this evening. I haven't been to a Codman Square meeting in a really long time, so I'm excited to be back in some capacity. But I'm more than happy to speak about the certification process. I understand your concerns wholeheartedly, and I try to be as efficient as possible in making sure that our equity applicants truly are meeting the equity criteria that's set forth in our ordinance. And as Lesley said, we don't have any flexibility with this ordinance. We have to apply it as it's written. So as the ordinance is written, there are 6 criteria, 3 of which at least 51% of the ownership of an applicant must meet. And to get to those 3, each individual, so it's not just like if there are 4 people and 3 of the 4 each meet one of the criteria, it's met. No, each individual must meet at least 3 of the criteria. So the criteria are as follows. The applicant or applicants have resided in an area of disproportionate impact for at least 5 of the last 10 years. Areas of disproportionate impact have been designated by the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission at the state level, using census tract data. So that's one of the criteria. And to certify people under this specific criteria, I ask for a number of things, one of which is a copy of their driver's license. So I see, you know, where their home address is, but I back that up with either a copy of their mortgage, a lease, as well as utility bills for the 5 years that they're trying to prove residency. So I'm trying to, like, you know, build a firm file of, you know, where they actually live. Another one of the criteria is that they've had a past arrest or conviction for the possession, sale, manufacturing, or cultivation of marijuana from 1971 to 2016 and have resided in Boston for the past 5 years. Alternatively, they can be the child of someone who has the past arrest or conviction. Again, I use residency information to verify that they've lived in Boston for at least the past 5 years. And I also am able to look at their query to make sure that it is specifically a marijuana arrest or conviction, not anything else. The third criteria is that the person has resided in Boston for at least the past 7 years. Again, I use driver's licenses, leases, mortgages, deeds, utility bills, bank statements, etc. The fourth criteria is someone who is of Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, or Asian descent. To certify under that, I know I can't take everybody exactly at I can't trust my eyes for everyone, so I do request a copy of their birth certificate. And I do understand that after a certain year, I believe it was 1968, they stopped putting racial data on birth certificates. So for that, I do request a birth or unfortunately a death certificate of a parent, because those documents do include racial data. The fifth criteria is someone with an annual household income that is at or below 100% of the area median income. For that, I do request a copy of their most recent tax filings, and I use various tools which are backed up by HUD data to determine the area median income. And then the final criteria is someone that is certified by the CCC as an economic empowerment applicant and is a resident of the city of Boston for at least one of the past 3 years. So again, I use the same residency criteria that I mentioned before.
And again, this is something that we can email, because I know not everyone can absorb this information that
That's a
quick.
ton of information.
But I think we want to emphasize this is a very, very serious vetting process.
It doesn't sound that way, because this means anybody, any white Caucasian male can come to a Black woman and say, I'll fund you 100%, I'll give you a building. All I need you to do is to be the equity applicant. Can you meet the qualifications for that? Don't worry about anything else. I'll set you in business. I'll give you 51%. You'll pay me rent. This is a presentation that was made before the Melville Park Association. It's been recorded and I have it. And in fact, the owner got very upset with us because we questioned in that area. And we just couldn't believe that a white guy just said, well, I searched around until I found an equity applicant. And so I own the building. So that's what I'm going to do. I think
we have to continue this, Joanne. I think we have to continue this conversation offline, just being mindful of time.
All right.
Okay. But I really,
so I was just hoping that at the state level that maybe, Representative Holmes or Nick Collins or someone could provide some guidance around this kind of thing. It just doesn't seem right. And particularly to a solid equity applicant, the other candidates one.
Thank you for
thank you.
I appreciate it. And Lesley, Chayla, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We allowed this presentation to go on a little longer than we normally would because we're so grateful for you being with us tonight. And there was just a lot of important information to cover. As you can see, we have a lot of questions, so don't be surprised if you receive follow-up emails and calls and we continue the conversation. But we really appreciate your partnership, the information that you shared, and we'll be in touch because like Rep. Holmes shared, we'd like to meet with these applicants with you all and continue the conversation.
And if you want to invite us back, we're always here to say yes. We're happy to come back. And again, I can't say thank you enough, you guys, for having us, and especially Representative Holmes for the advocacy that he's done on behalf of the community and his patience with me personally. So I appreciate it. So thank you all very much. Email us and feel free to invite us back.
All right, thank you.
So can I just say before Shayla gets off the phone, I am equally, she's also been excellent over all the years as well. So to have the two of them, just to let you know, it's excellent to have both of them because they're both just excellent and they're both lawyers and they help me through all this legalese stuff all the time. So thanks. And I got your back as well. Thanks. Sorry, Cynthia. I'll defer my time to my colleagues. Hopefully he'll get his time to speak.
Great. Okay, we have a lot to cover still, and I want to be respectful of people's time. We're going to move along in the agenda, and we're going to hear from mayoral candidate John Santiago. He's going to share a little bit about his campaign, and we're excited to meet him.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cynthia, and to the neighbors of Codman Square for your civic engagement and for the invitation. I hear a lot of the frustration in your voices and the work you've put in. I was texting Representative Holmes to learn more about what's going on right now, and it sounds like, the community must be heard. And, as hopefully the future mayor of Boston, I'm committed to making that happen. It's good to see you, colleague, Representative Holmes. I want to make it clear that the folks at Codman Square know that he is one of the most forceful advocates on Beacon Hill. He shows up to the meetings, not just on Beacon Hill, but in the community. And I'm lucky to have his friendship and his mentorship in the State House. As Cynthia said, my name is John Santiago, and I'm a state representative. I'm effectively what Russell Holmes does, but I represent primarily the South End and Roxbury neighborhoods of the city. But I wear also a few different hats. I'm also an emergency room doctor at Boston Medical Center. I'm also a captain in the U.S. Army, where I still serve and was recently deployed to the Middle East. And I got in this race for mayor because I believe, probably like many of you on this call right now, that this race will be the most consequential race in our city's history. You know, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, this city has experienced very difficult times, whether we're talking about a busing crisis of the 1970s or the wealth and health disparities that existed already pre-COVID. In the district that I represent, from Copley Square to Nubian Square, there's a 30-year life expectancy difference in about a 30-minute walk, you know, and it's shameful that we're experiencing that in the city of Boston. And, you know, we've been through a lot as a city, but what we're seeing right now in terms of those disparities have all of which been exacerbated during COVID. So I strongly believe that the only way that we're going to get out of this crisis is with strong public leadership, you know, and I'm running for mayor, not just to lead us through this crisis, but to get us to recovery, very much rooted in two things: equity and opportunity, because I think this moment right now in this city transcends politics. And it's going to require not just a leader, but a public servant who has the leadership experience, the energy, the work ethic, and is most committed to getting things done. And I've done that my whole life, you know, through public service, whether as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic, working as a community organizer, as a captain in the Army, getting deployed as an emergency room doctor who still works the Friday and Saturday overnight shift at Boston City Hospital. To me, my life has been about getting things done. But to be very clear, as difficult as the past 15 months have been, the real challenge is going to be the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I also look at that as one heck of an opportunity with the hundreds of millions of dollars that we're going to be receiving from the federal government, you know? And so I think it's an opportunity to think of a better, bolder, brighter, and more equitable Boston. And I'm committed to doing that, you know, to making sure that every child in this community has access to world-class education, where communities like yours are heard on these important issues when it comes to marijuana dispensaries, you know, because I can tell you in my community, you know, when community members stood up, you know, we fought back a number, and I'm not against marijuana, I'm a physician, you know, I believe that it serves a purpose, but, you know, we were able to stop, you know, multiple marijuana dispensaries from coming in recreational into my neighborhood. And look, that's a lot to ask for, you know, but I'm up for the challenge because I walk the streets like Representative Holmes. I'm engaged in the community. I work with patients. I hear their stories, but it's also about my personal life. You know, I was born in Puerto Rico. I came to Boston as a child. We came here in search of opportunity. We lived in Roxbury, family of 6, Section 8. My father wanted to graduate college. He went to school full-time at night, worked during the day. My mother took ESL classes at UMass Boston. And for me, Boston's always been a place of opportunity, but it's also been a place of tragedy. It's where my uncle became infected with HIV and he died of AIDS at the age of 36. You know, never mind that he was in a hospital in a city with world-class hospitals that he was only a stone throw away from. He died, you know, and that spurred in me a desire to serve. And after spending 5 years abroad working in Latin America and Africa and Europe, you know, I came back to Boston 11 years ago. My family had been priced out. They had left the city, they had left the state, but I came back to start over here. Went to medical school. I've been at Boston Medical Center for the past 6, 7 years. And the lesson you learn at BMC in the emergency room is that why people show up there, it's a direct reflection of what's happening in their respective communities. It's a lack of economic, educational opportunities, lack of housing. And that's when they end up in my emergency room, you know? So when I take care of someone who's been shot, it is always a young Black or brown male that has lacked the opportunities that he deserved. And so a couple of years ago, I got frustrated with what I was seeing in the emergency department, and I decided to run for office to get after these root causes. And after beating almost a 40-year incumbent, you know, we've been in the State House working with Representative Holmes on a number of issues, and what I would argue one of the most productive sessions in recent memories in the legislature. And during COVID-19, I stepped up. Not only did I double my hours in the emergency department, but the Speaker of the House asked me to serve on his 5-person COVID leadership committee to make sure that government was still operating, that we were still working and doing the work that we needed to do for people like you in this community. And so when Marty Walsh got the tap to become the Secretary of Labor, I got to thinking, what does the city of Boston need more than anything? And that's leadership. And that's something I've exhibited my entire life in service. And that's what this campaign for the past 3 months has been about. So honored to be here at Codman Square, looking forward to engaging each and every one. I'll leave some contact information so that we can remain in touch, but looking forward to being out in your neighborhood, having these conversations and getting to know each and every one of you. So thank you, Cynthia.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your story. We have time for maybe 2 quick questions for the state rep.
Quick question, who's sponsoring you?
What do you mean who sponsor me? Like
who's supporting you? Whose name? What names can you?
Well, we received a number of endorsements. We have endorsements, labor endorsements. We recently got endorsed by SCIU NAGE. We've been endorsed by Local 223, one of the biggest labor organizations in Boston. We have a number of State House colleagues that have jumped on board. The representative from the North End, from West Roxbury, from Austin, Brighton, from Charlestown have all recently endorsed our campaign.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the state rep? Rep Santiago, you mentioned that you were able to keep certain things from coming into your neighborhood. Do you mind sharing which neighborhood you live in?
Yeah, in the South End. I mean, listen, we had a number of recreational marijuana dispensaries. And let me just say, I'm not necessarily against marijuana, but there were some quality of life issues that had to be addressed. And so they started to pop up all over the place. One on Columbus, one on Tremont, one by Blackstone, and the community banded together. And look, I'm a State House guy. When I got into office, I got involved in Beacon Hill, but I learned that my constituency and my neighbors weren't getting, the representation, or did not have their voices reflected in City Hall. So I got involved, very much like Russell Holmes. Russell Holmes is a state rep person, but he gets involved with his local community and is active in advocating for you at the City Hall level. So I did that. So we had one on Tremont that essentially was blocked. We had one in Columbus that was blocked as well. And ultimately, I think they did one on by the Blackstone Park, by Franklin Park, and it's been put there. But I mean, the question of having 2 marijuana dispensaries within the buffer never really came up. I mean, it was out of the question. So that's why when I'm hearing, the confusion, and I'm texting Representative Holmes and like, am I hearing this correctly? And he's telling me yes. And the idea that, every one of your elected officials, the community members have been, making arguments against the fact, listen, people don't sound like they're NIMBY on this phone call. You've happily accepted one, willing to work with that, believe in equity applicants. But the fact that they've had 2, and, I'm learning the process myself, hearing that on that phone call, and it's concerning to me that, the voice of the community has been not as, respected as I would have imagined. And I say this as a person who, before I was a physician in the emergency room, I was a community organizer working to uplift and engage neighborhoods. And that's what my campaign has been about. When I ran the first time, Cynthia, I knocked on 9,000 doors, right? Because to me, it's important that, I hear your voice. And when I knock on your door, listen, I want your vote, but most of anything, I want to learn and engage from you. And I want to listen to the issues that you have to teach me about. That's what I teach my medical students, my residents, and that's how I campaign.
Rep Santiago, thank you so much for sharing your story with us this evening. It's really important for us to get to know the different candidates that are running and why they are running. So we appreciate you being with us tonight, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Great. I'm going to put my email in the chain here. Great to see you all, and we'll see you around.
Thank you. Have a good night. Moving along in the agenda, we'll now hear from District 4 candidate Leonard Lee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leonard Lee, born and raised in Dorchester, Franklin Field Housing Projects. Codman Square is special to me. I got my first bank account there at Dorchester Savings. I'm dating myself, but that's okay. I've been in this community all my life. I've been an advocate all my life, helping people, gang violence, street worker. I ran the Dorchester Neighborhood Service Center for over 11 years. Sadly, I buried over 34 young people around gang violence and youth homicide. People know me as getting things done. Being a city councilor in name only says in name. In terms of work, my life has been that work. Advocating for young people, taking 6 busloads of young people down Marching for Our Lives, taking another 4 busloads of young people down to Selma to experience the 50th anniversary of the bridge crossing. Walking the streets, having food programs out of Dorchester Neighborhood Service Center. Ironically, when I was 14 years old, I got my first job at the Dorchester Neighborhood Service Center. And when I graduated from college, I wanted a Mercedes and really fine clothes. But my spirit told me an opportunity came up to run that organization, a place where I got my first summer job. and a place where I grew up, went to the olive window homes, graduated, believe it or not, from Girls Latin, which is now an apartment building. I say all this to let you know my roots run deep in the district. I say this because we still have the highest crime rate and shots fired in the city of Boston. I say that because we still are dealing with environmental issues, and I know a number of you can remember when this district was known, where people would come and dump oil and environmental stuff in our community, and we fought. I've always been a fighter for the people of this community. People know me as no nonsense. I'm not going to tell you, make promises to you like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I'm going to let be by the example. And I because of my background in public health, and when COVID hit, an idea came to my head of how can I help my community, knowing that the highest people who are impacted by COVID are people of color because of pre-existing conditions. So I started masking the community. I got on Facebook, asked a number of my friends to give me $5 so I can give out free masks. And the reason I said free masks, because masks should be free. Because if you don't have a mask, unlike a pair of shoes, unlike a jacket, you could die. So I went on a task of asking friends and family to raise some money for my community. I raised over $100,000. I've given out 350,000 masks to folks in this community, and also it's branched over to Springfield. We have a lot of Caribbean folks here, and they came to me. Next thing I know, I'm in Jamaica passing out masks. The thing happened in St. Vincent. Folks who live here from St. Vincent came to me and said, can we get some masks to folks in St. Vincent? So my advocacy runs deep. It runs real deep in this community. It's not something, I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking to take the people of D4 to City Hall and City Hall to D4. We're in the largest part of the transit. What we're going through right now is the largest transition in the history of Boston of leadership. And you know, with any transition, something gets lost. And I do not want D4 to get lost. It's a tragedy that you can have outside dining down in Ashmont and you can't have the same thing up at Common Square. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. And God bless the folks in the work that you guys have been doing. You shouldn't have to work that hard because it should be a natural occurrence, and people should recognize that to make sure that happens. So I say all that because I want to show you in terms of my commitment to my community. I'm going to do what I do if I get elected, if I'm not elected. But the bottom line is I plan to get elected, and I want to take you with me to City Hall and bring City Hall to the community. So that's who I am. I have 3 kids. Real quick around education, you know, without advocacy, I'll tell you, I have 2 kids. One graduated from Morehouse 2 weeks ago. My daughter graduated from Tuskegee. She got a letter from school saying that she would never graduate anything past junior college, and they wanted to put her on an IEP and put in special needs. But I advocated for her as I did for my son. And now she's graduated from Tuskegee. Simmons finishing her master's. My son just got out of Morehouse. And I use that example because the same advocacy that I use for my children, I use for the people and my friends in my community. And that's what I would do. I'm a no-nonsense type of person, like to have fun. I'm an urban beekeeper. My neighbors know me as the nutty guy. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the work done and supporting the people who do the work. We got a lot of people who fake the funk, but then we got a lot of people who are down on the ground doing this work. You know, as recent as the shooting that happened on Park Street, which was incredible, but it's becoming too much of a norm, and people are not outraged like they used to. And we have to still be outraged so we can stop this. So my name is Leonard Lee. I lead with experience, commitment, and leadership so that our community can be represented and we can take D4 to City Hall and bring City Hall to D4. Thank you, and God bless y'all.
Thank you, Leonard. And I can attest to, with your support, we've been able to distribute thousands of masks throughout Codman Square. So thank you so much for that initiative. Any questions for Leonard? Comments? Well, I will ask, because you've been on a couple of our community meetings and you seem to be as passionate as we are about changing the landscape of our merchants district and bringing in some of these healthier options for us and our families. How would you go about that? How would you go about increasing healthy food options or different opportunities for our community in our merchants district?
Well, we got to make a lot more noise. I mean, I was part of the whole food truck movement in terms of bringing fresh food into the urban centers, working when I was at the Department of Public Health and working with different partners throughout the city. But we have to demand, this is not asking somebody to do for us. You know, if I have the honor and the privilege to work for you, I have to perform. I have to come with results. There's no reason in the world, and I say this with clarity, that we don't have healthy options in our community. Other communities do. And that means we have to advocate. We have to kick in the door. As John Lewis would say, we got to make some damn good trouble and not be afraid and not make deals and not get a job. There's a reason I didn't work for Marty Walsh. You know why? Because I could hang the phone up on him when he said something crazy about my community. And I say that in all honesty, because it becomes important not to sell your soul in the likes of your community. So the answer to that question, Cynthia, it really is like, we got to make some good trouble. We got to be consistent. We got to mobilize. And one of the things I'm thinking about, we have to have a federation of neighborhood councils, because a lot of us have the same issue: housing, environment, taxes for seniors. We have a lot of the same issues. So therefore, we had a federation, have representation. You still keep your independence as a neighborhood council, but you have a federation that now you go down to City Hall, and it's not just Codman Square. It's all the neighborhood councils within D4 kicking in the doors. People will respond. People will respond. They have to, because they work for us. So I got some crazy ideas, but I've always had crazy ideas at George Jefferson Neighborhood Service Center and other places I've been. But it's all about getting the work done. It's not about it's not about, you know, flossing. It's not about look at me. It's not about I'm the man. It's about getting the work done.
Thank you so much, Leonard. We appreciate you being here with us this evening, and we look forward to hearing more about the crazy ideas that you have to transform D4. We appreciate it. Please put your contact information in the chat so that others that want to continue the conversation can reach out to you as well. Moving along in the agenda, we will now hear from Boston City Councilor at Large candidate. Is Saeed Abdikarim on?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Cynthia and the neighbors of Codman Square. It's an honor and privilege to be with you this evening. I do hear the frustration in your voices. My name is Saeed Abdikarim, and I'm running to be one of your next Boston City Council at Large members. If given the opportunity to serve you and the honor to serve you as one of your next at large councilors, I'll do everything in my capacity to make sure that you are heard. Looking back at my life as a young Black immigrant boy who grew up in some of the most underserved public housings in Boston, as an ESL student at Boston Public Schools, I never thought I could one day run for office to make a difference. I recall selling newspapers to support my family at the intersection of MLK Boulevard and Warren Street, struggling to pronounce Dr. King's name. After learning about Dr. King's legacy, his words stuck with me. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? For the past 6 years, I worked with Boston Public Schools, community organizations, teaching life, career, and technical skills to kids. I helped immigrants resettle in Boston, learn English, find housing and jobs. I taught kids to eat healthy foods and to be good to the environment. I am grateful to my Boston Public School teachers, librarians, and community members who believed in me and instilled the importance of community. I am ready to fight for economic, educational, social, and environmental justice because I lived all these issues. My top 3 policies are STEM and vocational skills for higher paying jobs. Coming from the technology world, I believe if we equipped our kids with these skills at an early age, we have the opportunity to bridge the wealth gap. We have the opportunity, to give our kids a chance to afford to live in Boston, to get a good paying job, to potentially start a business and, buy a home. My second policy is affordable housing. I lived in about 4 different Boston public housing, developments throughout Boston. And I know the importance of affordable housing because it makes our city vibrant. It makes our city very, competitive and welcoming. My top 3 policy is environmental justice, especially, healthy food access to underserved communities. We need, urban farming in our communities. We need to teach our kids how to farm and be self-sufficient and how to eat healthy food at an early age, because I didn't have that, when I was growing up, throughout Boston. Also, hiring locals, people of color and women for city contract jobs, and also providing bicycle access in underserved communities. Because if you look in Boston, most of the blue bikes are not located in places that I grew up in. And, with this pandemic, a lot of our kids were home, attending classes via Zoom, playing a lot of video games, so they gained a lot of weight. I hope to get one of your at-large, city council votes. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any quick questions? We really appreciate you sharing your story and allowing us the opportunity to get to know you better. We know we missed you last month, so we appreciate you joining us this evening. I hope everything is all right. I know you had a family emergency last month.
Thank you so much.
I do have a question. I was trying to type it up in the chat, but I guess I can speak it now because there's a number of candidates that are running for office. There's a concern with the increase in violence in the Boston community with, it seems, an absence of our police commissioner because he's busy fighting political matters. So my concern is for anybody who's listening right now, running for mayor, what do you plan on doing as far as having a strong voice in the Boston Police Department? Because this summer's approaching and it seems like we don't have a Boston Police Commissioner because he's so busy. So how would you figure out to fill in that vacuum?
John, you still there?
Was that question directed at the mayoral candidate?
So
Steve?
yeah, I just don't
Yes.
want to take up Saeed's time, or I don't know if, I'm okay, I can answer. I don't want to take Saeed's time. Or
Yes, please answer briefly.
Steve, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, right now we're about to see an uptick in violence. For me, as someone who works in the emergency room still Friday and Saturday nights, I can tell you that when this weather gets better, people are outside playing, dining, and having a good time. But for me, that means a busy emergency room with stabbings and gunshot wounds. So I absolutely agree with you. We should depoliticize this. What we need to do, and what I've advocated for, is let's empower the current Commissioner Greg Long right there to do his job. And after the mayor's elected, let's have a national search for a person who can serve in that capacity. The number one role of the mayor of Boston is to ensure public safety. And with the summer getting better, and with the fact that we've been in social isolation for so long with COVID-19, people are going to be out and about, and you can expect a pretty busy summer in the emergency room and out in the community. And that's what we saw last year during COVID. My guess is it'll be replicated again. And so we need to depoliticize it. We need to empower Mr. Long, who's there right now, move forward, and when the new mayor's elected, have someone there who can start doing national search.
Okay, I thought it was Dennis White was the police commissioner. Okay.
So no, he's not. He's not the police commissioner. I mean, he was the police commissioner very momentarily. Was put. There's currently a lawsuit that he's trying to fight. The current mayor is attempting to fire him right now, and that's being played out in the courts.
Thank you, Rep. Santiago. And thank you to all of the candidates that joined us this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your Wednesday evening with us. It's so important for residents in our community to know who you are so that we can make very informed decisions when the time comes. Thank you all. Have a good evening. So being mindful of time, we have run out of time. We were supposed to hear a presentation regarding the Building Energy Reporting and Disclosure Ordinance. Mike is kind enough to allow us to postpone that presentation until July. Thank you, because we have run out of time. And so now we're going to quickly move into hearing from our elected officials. I apologize, it has to be very brief, and we'll go through announcements, and then we'll try to just be over by maybe 7 minutes. I know we're supposed to end at 8:30. So do we have any representatives from elected officials' offices that want to share or provide updates?
Hello, everybody. This is Donte Peeples of the Mayor's Office, your liaison for Mattapan and Lower Dorchester. I will try to just be very brief. Cynthia, I can email information to you with links and things like that to be just sent out to everybody. Or if anyone wants to contact me, I can re-put my information back to the chat. Just first, I put a link in there for the flyer that's for anybody that wants to show support for the 7 alarm pretty bad fire that was at 73 Facing Street, where about 5 homes were affected. This donation drive is going to be at Vine Street Community Center, which is 339 Dudley Street in Roxbury. That's going on until June 5th, Friday, June 4th. And again, I can put that information back in there. Also, the firework task force that I'm on with Chief Miller and Rudney Celestine, who is now the citywide Haitian liaison. We've been able to put signage in Dorchester in all neighborhoods with the help of our city liaisons. But in Dorchester, we have signage at Adams and Bowden Street, Roden Park, Columbia Road, as well as Geneva Ave and Harambe Park, bordering Dorchester, Roxbury. But we have signage out there just talking about the trauma that goes on with fireworks. They're just not all fun, and how dangerous they can be. So with that, I can, again, give more information with that. But just some quick updates I have here. There's some summer grant programs that are going on this month into next month during the summer. So we have something called the Mayor's Youth Council. I can share the link for that, which focuses on youth inclusion in the city government and civic engagement. Applications for that go until July 18th. We have Summer Eats grants, which applications are open until June 11th. Just running out of time for that, but I can just send information to that, Cynthia. But this is just here to expand access to free and healthy meals for kids and teens in Boston, and gives a chance for community organizations to host a meal site. So that's another one. And then we have something called the Mayor's Garden Contest, where it's open until July 8th, which is on 11:59 on July 8th. Grand prize, which for that will be two round trip tickets from Boston all the way through to wherever you want to go, provided by JetBlue. So just some fun things going on. And I believe that's all we have for that. So I have a little bit more, but I just don't want to take any more time. I know we've run out of time here, but Cynthia, I'll be in touch with you definitely. So thank you for my time, Carbon neighbors. Thank you very much. I will see you next month.
Thank you, Donte. Thank you, Donte. We really appreciate your presentation and for going through it so quickly because we've run out of time. For everyone that's on the call, Brianna Miller from Michelle Wu's office put her contact information in the chat, and Brandy Walker from Anissa Sabi George's office put her information in the chat. Is there anyone else that wanted to share any information before I hand it off to State Representative Russell Holmes?
And I'm still here. I'm Brandy, everyone. I don't have any updates at this time from Anissa's office. However, if there's anything that I can be of help with, or any questions anyone has, any projects or concerns that anyone wants to share, feel free to email me and we can discuss them. I'll bring them back to the office and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
To see you.
Nice to see you too, Cynthia.
And if there's no one else, I'll hand it off to State Representative Russell Holmes.
All right, Cynthia, I know I brought all the information about cannabis, so I'm gonna do something you've never seen me do. I'm gonna defer. I'm gonna just say, I'll speak next month. We're at 8:35. I know there are gonna be 2 announcements. So the thing that I want to talk about most was cannabis. So we did that a lot tonight. So thanks so much.
Wow, that is
Steve,
wonderful.
can you believe it?
I can't believe it. He'll make up for it next month.
He sure will. So we'll quickly go through announcements. If those of you haven't heard yet, there will be a flea market at Dr. Loesch Family Park on June 26th, 9 to 3. Please contact Melissa if you want to get involved, have a table or sell things. The Codman Square Farmers Market, Saturdays, 11 to 2, July 10th through October 9th. You heard that from Keshler at the Codman Square Park. I put the link in the chat for more information and the email. Just a reminder, the Codman Square branch is going through a programming study. So if you want to get involved with deciding what the future of our library might be, please make sure you get involved, and I'll put that link in the chat. And we meet next month, first Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m., same time, same place, July 7th. So make sure you're there. Any other announcements?
Cynthia, can I make one quickly? I have masks, sanitizer, I got PPE equipment. I know we're going maskless, supposedly. But if anybody needs any PPE supplies free of charge, I'll even deliver it to you, because it's important. I don't care if it's 1 or if it's 10,000. If you need masks, you will get them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. And he does deliver right to your door. Christine, you have an announcement?
Yes, I just wanted to announce that there's going to be yoga, free yoga at the Dr. Loesch Family Park starting next Monday, 6:30 p.m. throughout the entire summer until August 30th. Okay.
That's wonderful.
Sponsored by Four Corners Yoga and Wellness.
Oh, we love Four Corners Yoga and Wellness. Great. And
Would
Melissa,
you mind putting that information in the chat, please?
Yep, and I'm
About
going to put it
yoga?
on the Facebook page as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Melissa, maybe you can go into more detail about the event at the park.
Yes, I can. So on June 26th, which is a Saturday from 9 to 3, we're going to be, we put together a Codman Square flea market or community yard sale, which will be at the Dr. Loesch Park on Wainwright Street. We're so excited. We're going to have DJ Y Sham there. We're going to have a food truck, gourmet Creole there. And it's just an opportunity if folks want to clean out their houses, sell their items, meet their neighbors. You know, we've been cooped up inside the house, maybe not have been able to talk to our neighbors as much. We're going to set up, there are tables. If people need tables, we have tables that are going to be available at the park. People can set up at the park, or they can set up at their at their places if it's around the park area, if it's in like the Wainwright Street area space. So if anyone is interested, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and then I'm going to also add the flyer that we have to the Codman Square Neighborhood Council Facebook page, and we're just going to be advertising all over the place. So we're so excited to have this event. We're gonna see a bunch of people, and you can like pick up some fun stuff. We're definitely gonna have some kids stuff. We're gonna have books. I'm selling the plants, and there's gonna be some art stuff as well. So if you're interested in participating, I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and just let me know.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know about you all, but the pandemic has taught me that I do not need half the stuff that I have. So I will be participating and getting rid of a lot of things. On that note, if there are no other announcements, I'm going to thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you for being here this evening. Please share this information with your friends, your family, your neighbors, and I will see you next month, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.